white person or person at all want to say these words in the first place? Why would you want to invoke the pain of people of color? Why would you want to rub in the fact that you are privileged enough to not be negatively impacted by the legacy of racial oppression that these words helped create?
Nani?
Dynamite! Dynamite!
A lot of racist shit going on in the country. What are you gonna talk about? We're gonna talk about a black person being bigoted towards his own people, and then like Jewish people. Now we're gonna talk about Hispanic people being racist towards black people, and even, dare I say, indigenous people. It's weird, but let's figure out what's going on.
Our meeting to conduct is because we heard an hour of some of the most hateful things the city has ever heard from 3-4 people in some of the most powerful positions in Los Angeles. People are hurting. And I am a black adopted child, Mike, so I feel for your son. And in this moment, I'm so glad he gets to see you fighting, and I'm here to fight with him. And I'm also glad that you didn't make this story about you or him. Brown political power can be rooted in black erasure, in anti-indigenous speech, and homophobic speech. We deserve better. The people have called for these resignations. Elected officials have called for these resignations. We need these resignations before we can move forward. But trust me, there will be a healing, because everybody in this room and everybody in this city wants that healing. But we can't have it without accountability, and I'm hopeful today we get that accountability. Thank you.
Yeah, Gray. It might sound strange, but it's not. It's not mumbo jumbo to the people suffering it, right? Like, I can't speak for what you have incurred or what type of struggles you might have incurred, but discrimination isn't just simply words. They have effect. They have impact. 3 people, apparently 4 people, have had an hour-long conversation about race-related issues where they called a child a monkey of a sitting council member, and described and denigrated black people, indigenous people, and people of the LGBT community. And it's one of those things where it's just like, you can't have that same feeling. You can't have that same feeling and be a person in charge. And I totally get what you meant. That it's like, how could, what part of your mind makes you think like, I'm gonna wake up and discriminate against somebody? Like, where does that come from? Like, if we could figure out the cure for that disease, I think we'd be way better off. But they're talking about political leaders, and this is something I'll say about the Democratic Party. Regardless of where you stand on the fine line, holding people accountable should always be a non-starter, right? It should always be the starter. Sorry. If you aren't holding up your part of the bargain, if you're not testing, if you're not smelling out on the smell test, you need to be held accountable. So let's see how our people are held accountable.
The president is glad to see that one of the participants in that conversation has resigned, but they all should.
This is from
he
the
believes
top.
that they all should resign. The language that was used and tolerated during that conversation was unacceptable, and it was appalling. They should all step down. The president is glad to see that.
And that's coming from the top, right? This was the scene inside the building. And I'm happy to say this. There's a plethora of people here. White, black, Mexican, Asian, all types of people. Because especially as black people, we have to understand, if it can happen to us, it can happen to anybody in this country. So, like, we have to be allies in times of needs, right? We need to be aware of these things. It's crazy. Like, they're basically shutting down the meeting. So let's get into what happened, right? In battle, LA City Council member takes leave of absence after leak audio of racist language. And this is like within the last hour. At first, she gave like some apology. She stepped down from city council, but she wouldn't step down from their power position. So let's see what happens. In battle, LA City Council member Nury Martinez on Tuesday said she would take a leave of absence, which is today, after resigning from her position as the president in the fallout over a leaked audio meeting where she and her 2 other council members were recorded making racist remarks. The latest protesters, let's see, is there any update here? The latest protesters erupt into city council Tuesday meeting with chants of resign now. The Times also reported Tuesday that Martinez used derogatory language and stereotypes to refer to Jews and Armenians in the same leaked recording. Crazy. Like it didn't stop at black people. Crazy. So this is the timeline of events. Martinez also reported she said that the council, Mike Bonin, handled his son as though he were an accessory. She also referred to Bonin as a little bitch. Herrera suggested that Bonin put his young son, out in the public like a lawn jockey. The racist statues used to invoke the antebellum South. Like, that's not even your culture. Like, you're using the racism of another culture. That's so weird. After former Los Angeles County Federation of Labor President Ron Herrera said, "I'm sure Katz and his crew have an agenda," referring to the Jews former state assembly member Richard Cates. Martinez is heard saying the Judos, which means Jews in Spanish, cut their deal with the South LA per the Times. Damn. Hey, that's how you hit them. That's how you affect them. Take the money. That's the thing. The reason why these people will come down is not because they feel bad. It's because the pockets of people's books will be hit. A bunch of people come in and say that NAACP come in and say things. The zoom out and the all around language, right? But ultimately, there needs to be like reform. There needs to be reform, and there needs to be people held accountable. I'm pretty sure by the end of the week, all of them reform, especially since now it's come from the White House. And once again, Democrats really don't play that. If they have someone in their ranks that they don't feel should be in their ranks, they'll remove them. That's some form of accountability, right? But what is, I often I've had conversations with people who've often said your racism is too focused on just white people. And I tend to agree with that, because as a demographic, you will always long to downplay someone else's strife to put yourself up. So basically, you'll see people align themselves with supremacy in order to gain favor in hopes of being just ranked higher. It's a hierarchy for them. And that's why you have people like, maybe Latinx people shouldn't be able to say the N-word. Because if you can turn off one of your attributes, or you can default down to one of your attributes. Like, I know a girl. It's funny. I know a girl. She was white and black. She went to my school in college, UAPB, and while on campus, her hair was always curly, always kinked, always even in afro. But now, as a person out of college and in the corporate world that she works in, I've yet to see a picture of her with her hair puffed up or curly. And I'm not saying that, I've seen every picture of her, that I've even done a deep dive. But it was just something that I noticed, because when I was following her and she posted a new picture of herself, I had to say to myself, who is this person I'm following? Like, I don't know who this is. And then when I clicked on the picture and took a better look, I realized, damn. So it's interesting. And yeah, black people are allowed to gatekeep the N-word. It's our word. Shut the fuck up. And there's even some articles about this, and there's not much about this. I just thought it was funny that someone actually wrote a legitimate like article on this and sourced it with science and shit like that. But basically, he leaves with this great. He ends with this great question: why would any well-meaning white person or person at all want to say these words in the first place? Why would you want to invoke the pain of people of color? Why would you want to rub in the fact that you are privileged enough to not be negatively impacted by the legacy of racial oppression that these words helped create? It's just a weird thing. It's a weird thing for people who want this scene of satisfaction. But it all comes back to this imperialistic view. They want to be known as conquerors.